Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is a tutorial on how to sew a loose fitting shirt, the pattern for which I drafted in a previous tutorial. The link for this tutorial will be above and in the description box below. Hi, my name is Ayo and welcome to 011 Clothings Tutorials. On this channel, I upload DIYs, pattern drafting and sewing tutorials. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do so and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So now, let's get right into the tutorial. Thank you! So these are the loose fitting shirt pattern pieces. This is the cuff. These are the shirt collar pattern pieces. This is the sleeve pattern. These are the front and back pattern pieces. This is the fabric that I will use to make the shirt. It is a lightweight, soft drapey fabric. It is similar to chiffon fabric, but it is thicker than chiffon and it is not transparent. I will now go ahead and cut out all the pattern pieces on this fabric. I have placed the fabric on fold on the table. I used half-an inch seam allowances all through for the front and back bodies, except for the side seams and the hem where I used 1 inch seam allowance. The back pattern will be cut on fold. I will now go ahead and cut out all the pattern pieces on my fabric. This is the sleeve pattern. I used half-an inch seam allowance at the upper part, 1 inch at the sides and half-an inch at the hem. I will now go ahead and cut out the sleeves. Remember that the fabric is on fold, so I'm cutting out 2 pieces for the sleeves. This is the cuff pattern. I have folded the fabric into 4 layers because I intend to cut 2 pieces of the cuff on fold. I used half-an inch seam allowance all through, and the lower part of the cuff will be cut on fold. This is the collar fall. I used half-an inch seam allowance all through. I will cut 2 pieces on fold, so the fabric has been folded into 4 layers. Note that the collar fall is being cut on fold. This is the collar stand. I used half-an inch seam allowance all through. 2 pieces of this will also be cut on fold, so the fabric has been folded into 4 layers. This is the back piece for the shirt, and as you can see, it was cut on fold. These are the 2 front pieces. I have fused interfacing to the button allowance at the center front of the 2 front pieces on the wrong side. I have also pressed the button allowance in place, as you can see, 1 inch for the button stand, 1 inch for the facing, and another half-an inch for the seam allowance. Remember that I used 2.5 inches for the button allowance when I was drafting the pattern. These are the 2 sleeve pieces, and I have already notched the center the front and the back so as to avoid confusion while sewing. I did the notching at the sleeve edge. These are the two cuff pieces, and I've already gone ahead to fuse interfacing to the wrong side of the two cuff pieces. These two pieces are the collar stand, and I've also fused interfacing to the wrong side of the two pieces, as you can see. These two pieces are the collar fall, and I've also fused interfacing to the wrong sides of the two pieces. So these four pieces will make up the collar of the shirt. This is the back of the shirt, and with the wrong side of the back piece facing up, I will place the two front pieces on top of the back pieces. Wrong sides are together. I will make sure that the two pieces are well aligned. Then I will pin the front and the back shoulders in place. I will be doing a French seam. So I will first sew the shoulders in place, wrong sides together, using 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance. So now I will first stitch the shoulders in place, wrong sides are together, using 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance like this. I will now reduce the seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch, like this. Once I'm done trimming, I will turn the shoulders to the wrong side, like this. I will now stitch using the remaining 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance. Remember that we used 1/2 an inch seam allowance at the shoulders when cutting out the fabric. So this is what the shoulder seam lines look like now. All the raw edges are enclosed within the seam, and this is what is called a French seam. I will now go ahead and stitch the button allowance in place. And remember that I've already pressed the button allowance in place. So what I will do now is just go ahead and do the stitching. I will stitch 1 inch away from the folded edge of the fabric. I will do this for the two front pieces. I will also top stitch the folded edges of the button stand about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the button stand. So now the stitching has been done for the two button stands at the center front, and I've also done the French seam for the shoulders. It is now time to stitch the side seams together. I will also use French stitching technique for this. So with the wrong sides together, I will first do the stitching using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So I'll go ahead and do the stitching now for the 2 side seams using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will now trim the seam allowance to about 1/4 inch for the 2 side seams. I am sorry that my camera did not capture this very well. I will now turn it to the wrong side, and I will also do another stitching, the second stitching, using the remaining 1/2 inch sewing allowance. Remember that I used 1 inch for the side seam allowance when I was cutting out the fabric. Once I am done stitching, the seam allowances on the right side of the fabric would have been enclosed within the seam, and it will no longer be visible. So now the side seams of the shirt have been stitched to get together, as you can see. And this is what the wrong side of the shirt looks like. No raw edges are visible both on the wrong side and on the right side of the shirt. These 2 pieces are the collar fall. I will place the 2 pieces such that right sides are together, and I will stitch the 2 pieces together in this direction using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will also top stitch the outer edge of the collar fall using 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now the stitching has been done. I will now notch the middle of the collar fall like this. I will also pick up one of the collar stand, and I will also notch the middle at the upper part like this. I will now pin just one piece of the collar stand to the already stitched collar fall like this, making sure that the middle points match up. I will pin the upper part of the collar stand to the lower part of the collar fall. Once I am done pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. Now the stitching has been done and I've ironed the collar. I will now go ahead and notch the center of the collar stand at the lower part like this. On the main shirt piece, I will also notch the center back at the neckline like this. I will now pin the collar to the neckline like this, making sure that the middle points match up and right sides are together. Once I'm done pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and this is the second collar stand and I've already pressed the 1/2 inch sewing allowance in place. I will now fold into 2 and I will notch the middle point at the upper and lower parts of the collar stand. I will now pin the upper part of the second collar stand in place to the other side of the collar fall without the collar stand, making sure that the middle points match up and right sides are together. Once I'm done pinning, I will stitch using half an inch sewing allowance. I will stitch following this direction that I'm showing with my hand. I will make sure that the seam allowance at these two extremes are folded upwards. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and the seam allowances at the two extremes at the center front were folded upwards before stitching. I will now go ahead and reduce the seam allowance to about 1/4 of an inch so as to reduce the bulk of the fabric at this area. After trimming, this is what the collar looks like. Remember that the lower part of the collar stand, the seam allowance at the lower part has been pressed in place. So using a needle and a thread, I will go ahead and base the collar stand in place first. This will ensure that we have a neat finishing for the collar. So now that I'm done basting, I will go ahead and stitch in this direction using 1/8 of an inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, and this is what the shirt collar looks like. This is a piece of the two sleeve pieces, and this side is the back of the sleeve, and this side is where the placket or the sleeve opening will be at the back of the sleeve. So I will locate the middle point of the back of the sleeve at the hem, and I will draw a vertical line from the middle point upwards like this using my ruler. The line will be about 3.5 inches long. Then I will slit it open with my scissors. I will do the same thing for the second sleeve piece as well. I have here these two fabric strips which I cut on bias. The length should be long enough to cover the slit opening plus some extra additional allowance in case there is a shortage, and it's about 1.5 inches wide. I will now go ahead and fix the bias strip to the sleeve opening like this. I will stitch using 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance. Once I'm done stitching, I will fold it into two like this, and I will stitch diagonally like this. And this is what the sleeve opening looks like now. I will do the same thing for the second sleeve as well. So now the sleeve opening have been fixed. It's now time to join the side seams of the sleeve together. So I will fold the sleeve into two such that wrong sides are together, and I will be doing a French seam again. So I will first stitch using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing for the second sleeve piece as well. So now the French stitching has been done, and all the raw ends inside the sleeve and outside are not visible. This is the cuff of the sleeve. I will now fix the cuff to the hem of the sleeve. I will make sure that the upper part of the slit is folded inwards to the wrong side while fixing the cuff to the sleeve. I will pin right side to right side, but I will leave out 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'll go ahead and do the stitching using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing for the other sleeve piece as well. So now the stitching has been done. I have fixed the cuff to the hem of the sleeve. I will now fold the cuff into two like this, and I will stitch the two sides of the cuff using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. When stitching the two sides of the cuff, I will make sure that the seam allowances at both ends are facing upwards. So now the stitching has been done, and I made sure that the seam allowances at the two sides were facing upwards. I will now trim and reduce the seam allowances so as to reduce the fabric bulk. Next, I will turn the cuff to the right side like this. I have already pressed the 1/2 inch seam allowance at the other end of the cuff. I've already pressed it in place. So what I will do now is to use a needle and thread to base the cuff in place. Once I'm done basting, I will now go ahead and stitch all around the cuff using 1/4 inch sewing allowance. So now I'm through with the cuff of the sleeve, and I've ironed it very well, as you can see. It is now time to fix the sleeves to the armhole of the shirt. I will also do a French seam for this. So first, I will pin the sleeves to the armholes of the shirt, making sure that the center of the sleeve matches up with the shoulder seam lines. Wrong sides are together. And also the side seam of the sleeve matches up with the side seam at the base of the armhole. Once I am done pinning, I will stitch in place using 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing for the other sleeve as well. So I'll go ahead and do the stitching now using 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance. I will reduce the seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch, so I will trim off the excess like this. I will now turn the shirt to the wrong side like this, and I will stitch all around the armhole using the remaining 1/4 of an inch sewing allowance. Remember that we used 1/2 an inch seam allowance when cutting out the fabric. I have fixed the two sleeves to the armhole of the shirt using the French stitching technique. I have also hemmed the lower part of the shirt. And this is what the wrong side of the shirt looks like. See how neat the finishing is. All the raw edges are not visible because I used the French stitching technique. And note that I did not use an overlocker at all. What I will do now is to fix buttons and buttonholes. I will do buttonholes on the right side of the shirt, while the buttons will be fixed to the left side of the button stand at the center front. And this is standard for all female shirts. This is the final look of the shirt, and I've also fixed my buttons to the cuff of the shirt as well. So that's it guys, we are done. If you find this video helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, share this video with your friends who are interested in sewing, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. See you in my next tutorial. Bye, and thank you so much for watching.